Hey, ladies, welcome to Moms Together today. We are so excited that you're here with us again this semester. As you can see, things are looking a little different. We're trying out some new ways of getting material to you and communicating with you. So thanks for bearing with us as we kind of explore the best way of getting our content out and having a great semester. So thank you to Marty for offering our curriculum through video this semester so we can maintain our social distancing. That's a real treat, and I know it takes a lot of time, especially knowing Marty, it takes a lot of time. And so how many, we've joked about, how many times he's had to redo these videos to keep it in our time limit. So how many did it take this week, Marty?
Well, the video today took twice. The first time I did it, it lasted nearly 50 minutes. And so that's way too long. And so I had to cut out some things and got it down to about 30 minutes. So that was pretty good.
Well, we love you and we appreciate all the time that you're investing in us at Moms Together. And we just like to poke a little bit of fun at you every so often. You do have a lot of life to share. So we're truly grateful for that wisdom. But this little commentary back and forth is just our attempt to dive a little deeper into the material of the week and kind of just set up the tone for the discussion time. And so here we are trying out, something new. If you can't tell, I'm a little squirmy because I'm not used to being recording and trying to share, but this is fun and whatever it takes to, offer some fun, exciting things for moms together. So here we go. So the first week we just kicked off, the intro talked a lot about this ownership parenting versus ambassador parenting and how we're really just called to step into this role that God has called us to as ambassadors for our children. And I think the main takeaway for me, Marty, in this piece was recognizing the pitfalls of ownership parenting, recognizing that God, is the one who holds the destiny of our children. And so we are called to lay down our burdens and anxieties around parenting at his feet. And he will walk every day, every moment with us. And we can be just so gracious for that gift that he provides. But we're not in a place where we don't do anything. We have a role to play. And that role is being an ambassador. So really reflecting the Christ qualities to our children. I think about the fruits of the Spirit, those are mounted on my kitchen wall. And so, if ever I'm having a moment, I can look up and think, oh gosh, yeah, I really need to work on patience here or find some joy to express because maybe it's been a hard day. So, that's a good resource for us to think through some of the qualities that God calls us to as being models of him to our children. But I think another way to think through this is to really reflect on maybe how we were parented versus what we're trying to be intentional with as being an ambassador parent ourselves today. And so I don't know about you, Marty, but would you say your parents were thinking about being ambassadors of Christ when you were being raised?
No, not really. I mean, I went to church all the time. That was the faith part of my journey, but my parents were very strict, especially my dad. He came out of the military and, according to his book, there were just all these rules. And then there was pretty harsh consequences if we didn't follow through with things. And bless my mom's heart, she would try to spank us but her hands were kind of frail and she would get bruises on her hands. So she quit spanking us at a young age. And, but yeah, definitely. My parents felt like they were meant to conform us and grow us up to be good citizens of the United States and not really a kingdom view at all. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents also tried to do better than their parents did. I think I could tell ways in which they would share with us, but they were trying to do things a little less harshly maybe than they received or a little more lovingly in their responses or just even thinking through their intentionality towards spending time with us, I think was greater. One, because there were only three of us and they both grew up, with 7+ siblings.
Wow.
But I do think that it still was a lot of this: you will obey, you will, you use the word conform to what I think means in like respect and, obedience are all things that they really did desire for us, and success as well. Definitely wanted to see us succeed and try hard in things. And so there definitely was the faith component. So yes, that didn't fall by the wayside, but it wasn't what was guiding them in their parenting. And so it definitely looked a little different. And then you have the next generation. So in this case, here you come to the parenting table. However many years, is it like 35 years ago? How old is Bethany?
33.
33 years ago. Okay. So, and what do you think? Like, do you want to do things differently? Do you have a grasp on what this ambassador parenting looked like back then? Or did you slowly get it in grandparent, hood?
Well, our family is kind of in phases. We had two daughters, and then there was like 8 years, and then we had a son, and then there was another about 10 years or so, and then we adopted Annalie from China. And I would say that I was definitely a owner parent for the first two. I was all about rules and do what I said, and I was a fun dad. I was definitely a fun dad, but I was also reading books by James Dobson that talked about first time obedience and consequences for disobedience. And I kind of created this lens that said that my children were naturally bent away from doing what I wanted them to do. And so I kind of saw them always as being a little bit in trouble. Like I was measuring everything they did all the time, their tone of their
Mm.
voice, you know, whether they actually completed the objectives that I gave them. Go upstairs, change your clothes, make your bed, get ready for school, so forth and so on. And that got to be what I found out was that my children just could not do as good as what I wanted them to do, and I was an angry dad. I was an angry dad, and so I
Mm.
felt like I was always given consequences. And then you go fast forward about another 10 years, and here comes John, my son, and so I'm lightening up now. So I'm a little bit more grace, a little bit more tact, a little bit more understanding, and I felt like I did a pretty good job with him. I think I was more of an ambassador, but it was definitely like a transition. And
Mm.
then when we adopted Annalie, I'll tell you, when I saw just her preciousness and her brokenness and the heart of the Father in heaven kind of invaded my life, and I've become a big mush pile. I mean, I am full of grace. I have a hard time giving out like those harsh consequences. Like I don't even want to do those kind of things. I feel like love and compassion and kindness tend to woo and draw and create a better place for conversation and transformation. And it's
Mm.
definitely the longer road for me, but I feel like I'm so much of a better person than I was, a better parent than I was 33 years ago.
Well, I think it's interesting. We live in our homes for 18, maybe plus years for some, and it would not be surprising to most that we would walk away from that experience being, well, showing the qualities and values that clearly were pushed into us and, taught into us. And
Mhm.
so if our parents were, living out this ownership parenting a little bit more, then we're going to come initially to the table kind of with some of that view in mind as well. And so
Mhm.
super grateful, for Paul David Tripp's book that can kind of enlighten us on what our true calling is, which is developing this human soul to really love and honor God. Like
Mhm.
everything we do should be based on the redemptive nature of Christ, like his story. And I mean, that's humbling and just so encouraging to know that, once we kind of accept these graces that God has, offered us, then we can go off and give that a little bit more freely to our children. And I think, another thing that stands out is just God is continuing to sanctify us and work in our lives. Here we are at a Bible study, investing in what God talks about in parenting. And so we are being intentional with receiving what God has for us in this season of life. And I think he's going to honor and teach us and train us. And so, yes, we will be a better parent probably to our second or third or fourth child than maybe we were that first time, the autonomy of our child came out, as that 2-year-old who didn't want to eat their peas, and you're sitting here like, what happened to my sweet baby? Like,
Right.
you mean I have to like react now? Or, that first time your child hits and you're like, I didn't teach him how to hit, but it's just like ingrained, like sin is ingrained in them. And we're called to be the teachers of what God wants out of all of us, not just our kids, but us too. So
Absolutely.
I think, these stories of our own lives just show a redemptive nature of how God has just continued to work in our family lines to get us to where we are today. And here you are. We're proud of all the moms, sitting in the room who are taking this journey to kind of better understand what that means for them as a
Yeah.
parent.
When I think if we can get a grasp of how God parents us, so is he measuring everything that we do? Is he condemning us every time we fail? No, not by a long shot. No, he gives us grace upon grace, and he woos and he draws, and he calls us his own. The Bible says that he has written our names in the palm of his hand. I mean, I just get emotional thinking about the connection that there is between God and us, and the fact that he is not that person that has like consequences just ready to strike us down if we fail. Because um, it, I've become convinced, for example, that the hardest children to parent are those that are compliant, because they have a form of godliness, but their hearts really aren't in it. Why are they complying? Oh, they're complying because they want to be liked, maybe, or they like the fact that there's peace. They love the look in our eyes when we go, oh, sweetie, you're the best thing ever. You're better than all of our other children combined. When we have a compliant, good child, they're the ones that are harder to parent through this ambassador lens than the ones that are renegades and are kind of being disrespectful or a little bit rebellious.
Sure. One leaves us confused and one leaves us really exhausted, but
Yeah, that's right.
both hard in their own ways. But no, you're so right. And I mean, that kind of leads us, the first chapter of this book was about calling. And so, the introduction kind of sets the tone for, okay, like, here you go. Like, you're supposed to be this ambassador who is going to reflect God's character to your children every day, every moment, in every scenario that you can imagine. And we are sinners. That's going to be hard, but my grace will cover you. And you are enough. Like, I have called you to this role. And I do expect, you to do these things, and not just push them to the wayside or leave them to somebody else. But step into this challenge and really honor your child with this type of parenting. And so in this calling chapter, it kind of talks about what our distractions are. Like, what are the typical things that get in our way from really stepping up and being that intentional ambassador each day for our children. It can be waking up on the wrong side of the bed and not having the patience from the first second, the first call of mom, you're already tired, you're already exhausted. It could be, that you're tired and you want to break, but yet that's the day your child decides not to take a nap. There's so many examples of how our children kind of compete for, well, what we should, or what I would say is kind of our selfish nature of wanting, space and quiet and time and, space to work out and space to work and space to cook in a quiet setting and space to take a nap. And there's a lot of stuff we would like, basically. And we might say, or some people might say, our kids are our distraction from what we want to do. But we might need to take it from a different view and think about what are some of the distractions that are actually keeping us from being this or taking on in a serious way this call of parenting
Oh yeah.
that we have.
We're always chasing something that's elusive in our heart. The
Mm,
Bible talks about how desperate the heart is. That it's like a fire that can never be satisfied. Is the idea of it all. And so, how much rest do you really need, or how much work do you really need to do, or how much TV do you need to watch, or how much time do you really need to scroll on Facebook or whatever? And sometimes we get these desires that feels like they're very, very, very important to the point where we are now not doing what we could be doing with our own children.
mm, definitely.
So I think there definitely are things that start calling our names. I remember when I was years ago, I had a magazine. Like I love working on old cars, and so I got a truck magazine, and I found that every spare minute I could get, I was reading my truck magazine, and I thought, this is crazy that a truck magazine has now captured my attention more than a desire to go and play with my kids. But
Mm,
that's as simple as it can get, right? It's the little things
definitely.
that can become big things, and we all deal with it.
Definitely, definitely. So I think it's not one thing in and of itself that is called bad or wrong, as far as the use of our time or, something that we desire. God definitely wants those desires of our heart to kind of come to fruition as well. But at the same time, we have stepped in, He has called us to this role as a parent. And I think we need to make sure that we are the ones kind of being the forefront as an ambassador to our parents or to our parents, but to our children,
Mhm.
and not allowing days to go by or other people to step into that role more than we ourselves are.
Yeah. So one of the questions today is going to be, what are those things that we're giving our lives to that have become a bit of a
Yes,
distraction, and what would it feel like to actually like let go of that a little bit? So
right.
it's a great question.
Yeah, well, we are excited for you guys to be able to explore some of these topics as a table group. And so we'll go ahead at this time and let you guys get to those discussion questions. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday.